Rap singer Eazy-E has lost his battle with AIDS just 10 days after revealing that he had the disease. The 31-year-old rapper died last night in a Los Angeles hospital.
How could a powerful artist like Eazy-E pass away only 31 days after being hospitalized? Doctors said it was advanced stage AIDS, and the death certificate confirmed pneumonia caused by AIDS. Wright only learned he had AIDS after being hospitalized last month because of some breathing problems. But those numbers alone do not explain everything. An illness that usually lasts for years suddenly ended in just a few weeks. A hurried wedding took place right in the hospital. Control of a multi-million-dollar record label changed hands in an instant. He got married at the hospital because he wasn't sure if he was going to make it through. And his greatest rival, Suge Knight, who years later mentioned an HIV-infected needle as a method of killing. So they got this new thing out that people say all the time. They got this stuff to call, they get blood from somebody with AIDS. Yeah, they shoot you with it. This was no longer a simple medical story. This was the greatest mystery in hip-hop history. And nearly 3 decades have passed with the question still unanswered. On February 24, 1995, Eazy-E was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, suffering from severe coughing and shortness of breath. According to the Los Angeles Times, he believed it was just an ordinary respiratory problem, but medical reports showed that his immune system had been almost completely destroyed. The illness was identified as pneumonia, caused by Pneumocystis carinii, a typical opportunistic infection in AIDS patients. He was admitted 3 weeks ago complaining of breathing problems, apparently unaware that he had been infected with the AIDS virus. Just days after being hospitalized, Eazy-E's condition worsened. By early March, he was almost unable to breathe on his own and had to rely on medical support. On March 16th, attorney Ron Sweeney held a press conference in Hollywood. "I would like to turn my own problem into something good that will reach out to all my homeboys." There he announced Eazy-E's final message. In this statement, Eazy-E publicly admitted that he had AIDS, and the message was immediately published widely in major outlets such as The Washington Post and Newsweek. Eazy-E's statement sent shockwaves through the hip-hop community. It broke the silence that had long surrounded HIV/AIDS and forced many artists, as well as fans, to confront a disease deeply burdened with social stigma. Only 10 days later, on the evening of March 26, Eazy-E passed away at Cedars-Sinai at the age of 30. The funeral was held the very next day at Rose Hills Memorial Park in Whittier. According to the Los Angeles Times, more than 3,000 people attended, including MC Hammer, DJ Yella, and many other well-known figures. The ceremony was described as solemn, but the absence of Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, once his teammates in N.W.A., revealed fractures that had never been healed. For the media, it was a seismic event. Newsweek called Eazy-E's death a wake-up call for gangsta rap. An artist once seen as an invincible figure in musical rivalries had his life cut short by a disease many consider distant from the world of hip-hop. An illness that usually takes years to reach its final stage. Why did it take his life in only a matter of weeks? And when one looks at the conflicting circumstances surrounding Eazy-E, from power struggles in the music industry to the disputes over his estate immediately after his death, this passing becomes far harder to see as merely a medical tragedy. Complex suspicions surrounding the tragedy. Eazy-E's death not only shocked the world because he passed away at the age of 30, but also because the progression of his illness was alarmingly rapid. According to medical data, HIV typically takes 8 to 10 years to develop into AIDS if left untreated. But within only a few weeks of being hospitalized, Eazy-E's health collapsed and he passed away. This raised a series of pressing questions from the public. Dr. William Young, the physician who directly treated him, once asserted that Eazy-E contracted HIV through heterosexual intercourse. He dismissed the theories of drug use with needles or homosexual relations, factors that society at the time often associated with AIDS. Still, the unusually fast progression of the disease made it difficult for the public to accept that this death was merely a medical coincidence. The suspicions were intensified by the circumstances surrounding Eazy-E. Ruthless Records, the label he co-founded with Jerry Heller in 1987, had once dominated the industry with the launch of N.W.A. But only 2 years later, Ice Cube left the group over financial disputes, publicly accusing Heller and Eazy-E of manipulating rights. In 1991, Dr. Dre also left Ruthless. This time the departure unfolded violently when Suge Knight, later the infamous boss of Death Row Records, was said to have threatened and used force to make Eazy-E terminate the contract. Eazy-E himself recounted in a 1993 interview that Knight had resorted to violence to achieve his goal. These conflicts did not stop at legal battles. They erupted into public musical confrontations, most notably the track Real Motherfucking G's released in 1993, in which Eazy-E directly criticized Dr. Dre and Suge Knight. This tense backdrop led many to believe that Eazy-E's death could not be separated from the rivalries within the rap world. Suspicions only deepened when examining what happened immediately after his death. On March 14, just 12 days before he passed, Eazy-E married Tamika Woods in the hospital. According to his will, Tamika became the heir and took full control of Ruthless Records. This swift transfer of power and wealth instantly sparked controversy. Mike Klein, Eazy-E's former manager, filed a lawsuit claiming that Tamika and attorney Ron Sweeney manipulated the will to cut the Wright family out of their rights. A UPI report in April 1995 detailed the legal battle among Tamika, Eazy-E's parents, and Mike Klein. The dispute did not end quickly. Years later, Eazy-E's eldest son, Lil Eazy-E, continued to publicly accuse his stepmother of excluding the children from their inheritance, even bringing the matter to court. These prolonged legal battles gave the public further reason to believe that Eazy-E's death was not solely a medical issue. Beyond documents and lawsuits, testimonies from those close to him also fueled suspicions. DJ Yella, his close friend and fellow N.W.A. member, shared in a 2011 documentary that he felt the hospital wedding was unusual, since Eazy-E was nearly comatose at the time. For the public, the image of a rap star marrying on his deathbed and passing away only days later evoked a sense of confusion and contradiction. Along with a funeral that drew thousands of attendees and the immediate transfer of power, the public had even more reason to believe that Eazy-E's death was not simply the result of AIDS. The disputes over power and wealth turned Eazy-E's passing into something more complex than a medical tragedy. But it was the public statements of his former rivals that truly transformed this story into the center of countless conspiracy theories. Long-lasting conspiracy theories. At the center of every discussion stood Suge Knight, the Death Row Records mogul who had once been in direct conflict with Eazy-E during hip-hop's most turbulent years of the 1990s. In 2003, during an appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, Knight made a shocking statement. Before a television audience, he said, "If you want to kill somebody, you don't need a gun, just a syringe of blood infected with HIV." He then laughed and mentioned Eazy-E. Even without saying it outright, the connection to Eazy-E's death 8 years earlier was instantly drawn. The remark quickly spread, becoming one of the starting points that fueled the explosive rise of the Eazy-E was injected with HIV conspiracy theory. In the years that followed, Suge Knight did not stop. Between 2015 and as recently as 2024, he repeatedly made similar hints. His vague, half-joking, half-serious comments kept the idea alive that someone deliberately poisoned Eazy-E, and it gained wide traction. With his violent past and openly hostile history, with Eazy-E, Suge Knight became the prime suspect in the eyes of many, even though no concrete evidence ever surfaced. Reacting to these suspicions, Ice Cube also spoke out. In 2023 on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast, Cube was asked directly whether Eazy-E might have been injected with HIV. His answer was straightforward. I don't believe Suge Knight injected AIDS into Eazy-E, but I don't rule anything out. Suge is a crazy dude, and the beef back then was extremely intense. Cube stressed that the theory was crazy and lacked foundation, but he admitted that the violent atmosphere of early 1990s rap made every possibility imaginable. By 2021, the conspiracy resurfaced once more in the documentary The Mysterious Death of Eazy-E, produced by his daughter E.B. Wright and broadcast on N.W.A. TV. Across 4 episodes, E.B. and her mother, Tracy Jernigan, interviewed numerous witnesses and Eazy-E's friends, from Bone Thugs-n-Harmony to medical experts. Lazy Bone, a member of the group, implied that foul play might have been involved. The series also touched on the theory that Eazy-E could have contracted HIV through a contaminated acupuncture needle. Although the documentary offered no definitive conclusion, it stirred further debate. One detail highlighted by E.B. was that no evidence existed showing Eazy-E's wife or children had contracted HIV. For many viewers, this seemed like a gap that pointed toward poisoning. But medical experts noted that it is entirely possible for a partner or children not to contract HIV from an infected individual, and that this detail could not serve as proof. According to Vice magazine's 2015 analysis, the reason this conspiracy theory endured for so many years was not only Suge Knight's remarks or the irregularities surrounding the will, it also reflected the cultural backdrop of hip-hop at the time. The 1990s were marked by a string of tragedies: Tupac Shakur's assassination in 1996 and the murder of Notorious B.I.G. in 1997. In an environment where the deaths of artists were often tied to violence and conspiracy, the public found it hard to accept that Eazy-E, a powerful and notorious figure, simply died of illness. In recent years, social media has only amplified the theory. Since 2020, old interviews with Lazy Bone and clips of Suge Knight's statements have been widely shared on Twitter, drawing millions of views and comments. In particular, several viral videos in 2024 showed Lazy Bone repeating the claim that Eazy-E was injected with HIV, which further fueled the belief that something sinister lay behind the death. For younger generations who did not witness the events of 1995, these clips became substitute evidence, reinforcing the conviction that Eazy-E's death was the result of a conspiracy. What began as a medical event has turned into the centerpiece of endless speculation. The HIV injection theory has never been proven, but its persistence reflects the way both the public and the hip-hop community interpret the death. When the truth feels too difficult to accept, people are more inclined to believe in conspiracy than in reality. And that is what has kept the mystery of Eazy-E alive, even nearly 3 decades after his passing. From Suge Knight's ambiguous remarks to suspicions circulating in the community, Eazy-E's death has been overshadowed by countless theories. But when one returns to medicine and legal records, what remains is a harsh and unchanging truth. A harsh truth behind it all. After countless theories and stories were built around it, returning to the official records, Eazy-E's death emerges with a simple and brutal truth. His death certificate, signed by Dr. William Young, clearly listed the cause: pneumonia related to AIDS. Reports from the Los Angeles Times and UPI in March 1995 also cited this conclusion, emphasizing that there was no evidence suggesting criminal activity or external interference. For many, It seemed unbelievable that an illness believed to last for years could take a life in just weeks. But experts explained that this progression was entirely possible. HIV can remain in the body for years without obvious symptoms. Once the disease advances to AIDS and goes undetected and untreated, the immune system can collapse rapidly, leaving the patient fatally vulnerable and able to die within only weeks of diagnosis. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC) has stated that such a rapid decline is a common feature in the final stages of AIDS. A 2015 Vice analysis also stressed that theories about HIV being injected into the body, as Suge Knight once hinted on television, are biologically implausible. The HIV virus cannot survive long outside the body, and the likelihood of instant infection through that method is virtually zero. These scientific assertions indicate that the story of a HIV needle most likely remains nothing more than anecdote, without sufficient grounds to serve as a rational explanation. On March 16, 1995, only 10 days before his death, attorney Ron Sweeney read aloud to the media Eazy-E's official statement. In it he said, plainly, "I have AIDS. I did not get it from shooting drugs. I got it the way anybody can get it, through sexual contact. I am not homosexual. I want to say to my fans, check yourself. I have 7 children by 6 different mothers. Maybe success has come too easy for me." It was a direct declaration with no evasion, and perhaps the most honest message he ever left behind. For the hip-hop community, long accustomed to seeing Eazy-E as an invincible icon in music and conflict, his public acknowledgement of AIDS was something no one expected. It was both an admission and a warning to his fans, especially in an era when HIV/AIDS was still shrouded in stigma and prejudice. Even though Eazy-E's statement was clear enough, many within the hip-hop community still struggled to accept it. For the public of that time, the idea that a wealthy, powerful artist, a man who embodied gangsta rap, could die from AIDS was beyond imagination. Instead of facing reality, many chose to believe in conspiracy theories, that he was poisoned, that his death was the product of hatred or scheming. Pawsey magazine, in a 2023 article, argued that Eazy-E's death forced hip-hop to confront HIV/AIDS directly. But the heavy stigma surrounding the disease in American society at that time made it difficult for the public to accept the truth. Instead, they clung to conspiracy theories as a form of avoidance, because the cruel reality was, this AIDS could strike anyone, even a rap star, at the height of his fame. The brutal truth, as Eazy-E himself said in his final statement, was that it ain't cool. It was not only a farewell from an artist to his fans, but also a reminder of human fragility, showing that fame, wealth, and power cannot shield anyone from illness. The controversial journey of inheriting a legacy. After Eazy-E's death, the question was not only about the cause of his passing, but also about who would inherit the legacy he left behind. According to his will, Tamika Woods, his newlywed wife of just 12 days, became the legal heir to Ruthless Records. From then on, she not only managed the company, but also engaged in numerous lawsuits to protect the brand. One of the most notable cases occurred in 2017 when Tamika filed a lawsuit against Eric Darnell Wright, Eazy-E's eldest son, claiming he had illegally used the Ruthless Records name and brand. These disputes demonstrated that the value of Eazy-E's legacy remained both economic and symbolic, continuing to be contested years after his death. Despite the controversies, Eazy-E's influence on music is almost universally acknowledged. As a founding member of N.W.A., he helped create Straight Outta Compton, 1988, an album that sold over 3 million copies and became a milestone in hip-hop, taking gangsta rap beyond the streets of Compton to a global stage. After his death, Bone Thugs and Harmony, the group Eazy-E had signed and mentored, released E, 1999, Eternal, 1995. The album quickly surpassed 4 million copies sold, serving as proof of Eazy-E's sharp instincts and vision in discovering and nurturing new talent. That influence extended to later generations of rappers. Eminem and Kendrick Lamar, two of the most impactful rap artists in the world, have repeatedly referred to him as the Godfather of Gangsta Rap. To them, Eazy-E was not only a trailblazer, but also a symbol of boldness, someone unafraid to speak the harsh realities of the streets. Eazy-E's story, and that of N.W.A., was brought to the big screen in the film Straight Outta Compton, 2015. The movie not only reintroduced the group's history to younger audiences, but also became an opportunity for those who once had deep conflicts with him, Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, to indirectly revisit the memory of their former teammate. Although both were absent from the 1995 funeral, the film helped close that gap and restored Eazy-E's rightful place in hip-hop history. Eazy-E's impact went beyond music. His death became a catalyst for social efforts connected to HIV/AIDS awareness. In 1995, a fundraising concert against AIDS was organized, gathering many artists to call for public awareness. Years later, NPR noted that Eazy-E's public disclosure of his illness marked a turning point, forcing an entire generation of hip-hop to confront HIV/AIDS directly. Before that, the disease was often regarded as distant or confined to marginalized groups. His daughter E.B. Wright continued preserving this legacy by producing the documentary The Mysterious Death of Eazy-E, 2021. Although the film explored suspicions surrounding his passing, E.B. also emphasized the importance of education and raising awareness about HIV/AIDS. This was seen as part of an effort to turn Eazy-E's legacy into a social tool rather than leaving it only within music. Bone Thugs-N-Harmony, in numerous interviews, also recalled that Eazy-E had been stigmatized for having AIDS. They insisted that his legacy should not be remembered through his death, but through his career and what he contributed to hip-hop. To them, Eazy-E was the one who opened doors and created opportunities for an entire generation of artists. Eazy-E's death carried a message that extended beyond music. It reminded the world that fame, money, or power cannot protect anyone from health risks. HIV/AIDS does not discriminate by status, profession, or background. And Eazy-E, through his final statement, left a warning to his fans: take care of your health and act responsibly for yourself. Eazy-E's music may live on, but human life is not immortal. His greatest legacy is not only the classic rap tracks, but also the lesson of human fragility in the face of illness. Nearly 3 decades later, that lesson remains just as powerful. Do you think this was the tragedy of fate or an unresolved conspiracy? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to continue exploring other unanswered stories.